Right, hi guys, it is Dan here, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about Assassin's Quest, which is the last book in the Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hobb. I've just finished that, and also I'm going to be talking a little bit about some recommendations that I've got based on this, because I really enjoyed this, and also some other books that I'm possibly going to read in the future based on some a little bit of research I've done after reading this one. So yeah, as I say, this is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. It is the third book in the Farseer Trilogy, which is a fantasy trilogy, and that also makes up the first three books in her larger series of about 16 books, I think, that make up the Realm of the Elderlings series. Now, I'm going to be assuming, if you're watching this, that you've already read the first two books, so be warned, there will be spoilers. So yeah, at the end of the second book in this series, our main protagonist, Fitz, has been captured and tortured by his arch nemesis, Regal, who's gone and claimed the crown of the Six Duchies for himself. So Fitz has had to get out of this situation, he's had to fake his own death, basically, by transferring his consciousness into his magically bonded wolf companion at Night Eyes. And his only sort of accomplices in this are his mentors, Burrich and Chade. So Burrich and Chade are able to revive Fitz, or at least revive his body after this, but he really struggles to cope with the physical and emotional scarring of this event, this really traumatic event. And he has to battle against his wolf self and trying to live as a wolf after spending some time in Night Eye's body. So he ends up driving Burrich and Chade away and setting out to pursue his personal vendetta against Regal, King Regal now. But during an attempt to assassinate the king, he is then magically compelled by the rightful king, Verity, to sort of going to aid Verity on this quest that he's gone on to obtain the aid of the mysterious race of the Elderlings in the battle that the war that the Six Duchies is currently involved in with their sort of savage enemies, the Red Ship Raiders. So yeah, that's a bit of a sort of synopsis, I guess. Was this book any good? Yeah, absolutely. This whole trilogy has been absolutely fantastic, and I think Assassin's Quest is definitely a fitting end to possibly one of my new favourite series. So yeah, this novel shares a lot of the same strengths as in the previous books in the trilogy, and to be honest, I've probably gushed about Robin Hobb's really nice writing style and her very controlled pacing and her vivid descriptive prose and whatever enough in those videos. So, just take that as read, and in this one I'm just going to talk a little bit about Fitz's development and his character arc in Assassin's Quest. So yeah, as I say, fair warning, there will definitely be spoilers. So yeah, in Assassin's Quest, Fitz starts off with just practically nothing. He's lost his lover, Molly, his grandfather and protector, King Shrewd, has died. He's lost all of his friends and family from his former life. And on top of all that, he's suffered these huge traumatic experiences and been physically and emotionally scarred from it. And then at the beginning of this book, Hobb just proceeds to knock him down even further as his mentor figures, Burrich and Chade, sort of quite legitimately tell him that a lot of it is basically his fault because of his rash, selfish decision making in the previous couple of books. So yeah, this causes him to have a complete breakdown, drive Burrich and Chade away, and retreat into living completely as a wolf with his wolf companion Night Eyes. And what we then get is this fantastic character arc as Fitz has to like struggle with his own selfish desires almost to have what he perceives as being a happy life, when that will actually be putting the people who he cares about the most in like a ton of danger. But yeah, this is what he has to struggle with. He can't both have the people that he cares for and have a happy life, and also himself have a happy life. And this book, really, it's not necessarily a story about saving the kingdom. That's just the backdrop to Fitz's struggle with those two desires. He's got to learn to overcome his own selfishness, and that sometimes you have to sacrifice your own happiness for the happiness of the people that you love. And I thought the culmination of that character arc that's been running throughout the entire trilogy was just absolutely fantastic. You've got Verity there about to sacrifice his own life for the sake of the Six Duchies kingdom. And on that night, Verity lets Fitz have like a magical glimpse. They can see from afar using the magic. Molly, Fitz's lover, and their daughter, and also Burrich, who's been there protecting them. And Molly and Burrich end up getting together, both because it will protect the child, but also because they've developed a genuine affection for each other in the really long time that Fitz has been missing and presumed dead. So you got Fitz there with this big example of sacrifice going on in the form of Verity, and with that he is then able to make the decision to do what is best for Molly and best for their daughter, and let them live this life that they've made for themselves, even though it doesn't include him. I thought it was a really great conclusion to one of the best character arcs I've read in a really long time. And, somehow Robin Hobb makes the hero not getting the girl into the most satisfying outcome. So it's like a real turnover of that kind of trope as well, which I really enjoyed. Also, just quickly, I want to talk about Night Eyes, because he gets a lot of page time in this book, and he is really great to read. I loved his worldview. He's just lived completely in the moment, and is like totally accepting of whatever new situation crops up. His concept of loyalty to the pack, which obviously included Fitz, but also ended up including a load of other sort of human characters as well, was portrayed as this code of honor, code of morals that he adheres to, which was really fun as well. And Hobbs even manages to give him this kind of wolfish sense of humor that ends up like having some really funny moments. I mean, basically, I want to have a magically bonded wolf companion. So yeah, it was great. So yeah, as you can tell, I obviously really like this book. But I think there are possibly a few complaints that you could make. They're not complaints that I would make, but I did watch a couple of reviews that other people did of it, and some of their complaints were that it's very slow, and the plot is pretty predictable, and the ending is a bit rushed. And I would actually kind of disagree with all of these. I think it comes from, an interpretation of what the book is that I wouldn't necessarily go along with. Because, this is a fantasy trilogy about saving the kingdom from an evil king and some bad guys who are invading from outside. I mean, sure, that's the plot, right? But really, that's secondary to the character arcs in there. And I've talked about Fitz's character arc, but there's a whole bunch of other character arcs in there that are really interesting as well. That's just the main example. In terms of it being slow paced, and there is not a lot of action in it, admittedly, and the action doesn't take up a lot of page time. There's a lot of them just going from place to place and talking to each other, these characters, right? And so although there's not like an awful lot of you know, fights and crazy wars and, I don't know, like magic spells and whatever. That's not really what's important in this book, and I think you need the slow pace to really get into the character and the characters and their developing relationships. And also the plot being predictable. Again, it's the same thing. The plot is really secondary in this trilogy to the characters. So I'm not, well, from my perspective, certainly, I don't see that as a particularly valid criticism. And also, the rushed ending too, right? So now it depends again what you see as the main point of this trilogy. For me, there's not a lot. The action at the end is certainly really condensed. You know, all the fights against the Red Ship Raiders and against Regal all get wrapped up really quickly. But like I say, I don't really see that as the ending. I think the ending is actually when Fitz decides to basically not get involved in Molly and his daughter's life and let them live their own life and find their own happiness. You know, that's actually the ending of that's the end of his character arc, and his character arc for me is the purpose of this trilogy. So yeah, all the end is just kind of the ending with the Red Ship Raiders and with Regal. You know, the main action plot ending. Really, that's just an epilogue to the main character-driven story of this. So again, I didn't find the ending rushed. I thought it was really well developed throughout. If you take the ending as Fitz's character arc, like I did. So yeah, like I say, really great book, and I don't actually have any weaknesses myself. I know I've just talked about some weaknesses that other people have put forwards for it, but I didn't find any of them applied. I thought this book was pretty spot on. It's one of the best fantasy books I've read in an awful long time, and I'm definitely going to be reading some more Robin Hobb after this. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, if you like this, I couldn't really think of many things that I'd read that were too similar to it. But I'm certain that, you know, what I really liked was being really immersed in the first-person narrative and having a very character-driven story. So I kind of did a bit of research, and I think I found some stuff that sounds quite interesting that might be in the same vein. So I haven't got any of these books yet, but I'll just read them out, and you know, maybe if you're interested or if you've read any of them, then you could either check them out or tell me if they're any good. So I was thinking of Transformation by Carol Berg. I'll try and put these on the screen as well. Jereg, I think that's how you pronounce this, by Stephen Bruce. The Nine Princes of Amber by Roger Zelazny. And The Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. So if anyone watches this and they've read any of them, then please let me know if they're any good, because or if they're anything like the Farseer Trilogy. If there's anything else out there that's kind of like that, then I definitely want to read it, and I'm going to carry on with Robin Hobb's books as well. But yeah, the closest stuff that I could sort of think of was so yeah, if you like this, these are not exactly the same, but they've got some similar aspects anyway. So I got the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first book, The Blade itself, and this is like kind of a grim, dark fantasy series, but it is really character driven. It's not first person, it's third person with multiple perspectives, but you go really into depth on the characters. They've got fantastic motivations. Yeah, Joe Abercrombie just basically writes a really good character, and until I'd read the Farseer Trilogy, I thought this was the best character work that I'd read in a fantasy series. But yeah, the Farseer Trilogy has absolutely usurped that role now. But yeah, anyway, this is still a fantastic series, and yeah, I recommend reading that. The next one I've got is Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. This is the first book, The Eye of the World, and this is a real classic series. I'm sure if you're into fantasy, you've probably heard about this and read it anyway, but if you haven't, this is like a huge 14-book series. All of them are like 1,000 pages each. And there's also a prequel novel as well to take it up to 15 books. But again, this is got loads of great character work in it. Not just that though, the world building is absolutely huge. It's got a bunch of classic sort of fantasy tropes that it kind of plays around with a bit. But yeah, great character work again, and another classic of the fantasy genre. So yeah, highly recommended. The next one I've got is not a fantasy actually. It's historical fiction, and that is, well, this is The Ill-Made Knight, but it's the first book in the Chivalry series by Christian Cameron, who is one of my sort of top 2 or 3 favourite historical fiction authors. So this is set during the 1350s, 1360s so far. Starts off at the Battle of Poitiers, and then it follows like William Gold. It's a first-person narrative. William Gold is like this knight. Well, he doesn't start off as a knight. He's a mercenary that fights through Poitiers, 100-year war, France, the sort of city-states of Italy that are all sort of fighting each other, and also gets involved in a bit of crusading in the later books. So yeah, first person, so the same sort of perspective as you've got William in Farseer Trilogy, but with William Gold instead of Fitz. And Christian Cameron, similar to Hobb, uses his character work to explore different themes as well. So there's a lot made of violence and its place in society in these books, which is really interesting, as well as them being just great adventure sort of stories as well. It's kind of, they're linked in a sense, but they're all standalone as well. You could read them, you could read them on their own just fine. So yeah, this might have been a bit of a long video, sorry about that, but that was Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. I couldn't recommend this more highly. Yeah, definitely read this trilogy, the Farseer Trilogy. So yeah, goodbye, I guess.